Haimie, welcome to the Space Plus podcast. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have you here today. Just before we started filming the podcast episode, you said that you're in Berlin. How is Berlin?
Berlin is cold right now. I think it might be colder in New York at the moment. I'm not sure, but it's beautiful. I really love it. It's a big city. I haven't seen all of it yet, and I have 1 more month here, so hoping to do a bit of traveling within Berlin for the rest of the time while I'm here.
Okay, if someone does not know you, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, totally. No worries. My name is Haimie Getenga, but I just go by Haimie. I am a third year student at the University of Pennsylvania. I'm enrolled in the Huntsman program in International Studies and Business. So I'm getting a Bachelor of Science in Business, specifically concentrating in business analytics. And then I'm also doing a Bachelor of Arts in International Studies with a target in German. So I'm also getting a minor in German. And yeah, I was born and raised in Nakuru, Kenya, and then moved to the US for higher
Mm.
education. Yeah.
Okay, and you mentioned that, of course, right now you're in Berlin and you have a month left. So, what exactly are you doing in Berlin that ties to your major?
Yeah, so I'm currently studying abroad as part of my dual degree program at Penn. We do have to take a semester. You can choose to also do a full academic year abroad. And the purpose of it is because as part of our program, we have a target language. In my case, it's German. You need to spend some time in the country that actually speaks your language in order to further understand, like, I guess, the language and also the culture around it. More specifically, when it comes to like class requirements, we have area studies as part of our requirements and advanced language studies. And so for many students in my program, we go abroad to fulfill those requirements. So like area studies is just like taking classes that touch on Germany. In my case, I'm taking a class on like migration and um, asylum seekers in Germany. Like it's a literature analysis class. So we're reading books from people who are immigrants to Germany or who have sought asylum or refugees in Germany. And yeah, and so it's just a way to further understand, I guess, international studies and further understand the place that speaks your language. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I want to start off first of all with your high school experience, and
Okay.
then we can go over to your time in the application process, and then your time in Penn, and now your time as a study abroad student in Berlin.
Okay, cool.
So, yeah, how was high school? You went to Alliance High School. You haven't mentioned that, which is quite not typical for Alliance High School
It's an
students.
anomaly, yeah.
It's an anomaly, yes. So,
Yeah.
how was Alliance High School?
Alliance was a lot of things. I think I don't have one word to fully describe it. Sometimes when I think of Alliance, I think of it very fondly. And other times I remember certain moments and I'm like, oh my God, I was very ready to leave that school. But all in all, it was part of the reason why I'm here today. And so majority of the time I think of it as like a really good place that gave me a lot of opportunities that got me here. But yeah, so I went to Alliance. It was a good school, I think, very competitive, as we all know. And I've had a lot of opportunities that kind of led me to being here today.
Could you walk us through those opportunities?
Yes. Oh, yeah, totally. So I took part in a variety of different experiences. I can categorize them into like, I guess, leadership and then just things that I did for fun and because I was passionate about. And then that would be things that were more like globalized and international studies related. And so when it comes to leadership, I was the school captain at Alliance for about a year or so. This was post COVID, and everything after COVID is just like a blur. But as a school captain, I led a captain body of 100 students and was in charge of like the 2,000 students body. And then I was also a house cheerleader at Alliance. Alliance had, I think, about 16 to 18 houses by the time I left. And being a house cheerleader was less of like a prefect captain kind of role. It was more like a social role. So I was in charge of like inter-house competitions, like music competitions, competitions, and organizing more social events within the house. And that came with being the G2, which is there's a general committee of house cheerleaders and house chairmen at Alliance and Alliance High School. And this committee basically like organizes socials. So we'd have joint movies and like social events between houses and stuff like that, and I was in charge of doing that. And then, so that's more on the leadership side of things. When it came to like things I was passionate about, I really loved singing. I've always loved it. So music festival was my thing. Every funky, that was kind of like my situation. And so I was part of the school choir. I also sang in other capacities, like I'm an SDA, and I was part of the SDA group, and I sang in that capacity as well. And I was also a leader in the SDA group. But yeah, so that's like something I was more passionate about, something that kept being in high school less exhausting and more bearable. And then the last thing is like more international studies related, and I describe it that way because it's one of the reasons why I decided to study abroad, and I have the interest that I do have right now in international studies. Is I took part in an exchange program in Form 2 in high school. So went to Denmark for about 2 weeks in December of 2019. And some students from Denmark came to our school. It's a long-standing relationship with both alliances. And yeah, that was a great opportunity. My first time being outside of the country, and my first time interacting with people who were very different from myself. And so, kind of one of the fast stepping stones towards getting out of Kenya and moving to the US, I would say. I also took part in a conference. It was called like local, like think global, act local kind of situation between Basque and South Korea and Kenya. And it was along, we're discussing education, technology within education, and kind of how we can do that in a sustainable way that improves the quality of education that we get. Yeah.
And I really appreciate you sharing all of that because that encompasses what quality education is,
Yeah,
multifacetedness.
exactly.
And I just realized that I haven't asked you your definition of quality education is the first question I usually ask. So, Haimie, what is the definition of quality education?
I feel that's a very difficult question to answer, but my personal opinion on quality education is the education that inspires curiosity and that inspires students to continue asking questions. I found that the classes that I personally enjoyed the most were not classes that felt like I was cramming so many things, but classes where I was able to find connections between like something I was learning in biology to something I was learning in physics, for example, or I was able to like ask the teacher like why is this way and whatever, and the teacher was able to answer that question rather than just telling me like it's because that's the way it is, and like that's what the syllabus says. And so I think quality education is being able to tell people that these are the things that are important in life. You need to know Pythagoras theorem for some reason, or you need to know like how the human body works, yes, but also at the same time be able to inspire curiosity, because I think that's kind of like how we further research even within Kenya, and I think that's something that we
Yeah.
really need as a country, being able to push our students to also continue asking questions and being like, why does this work this way? What can I do about it? Or how does this connect to something completely different? And how can I change it? And so on and so forth. So yeah, that's kind of my definition of quality education. Yeah.
Yeah, and you've mentioned that there were some classes that made you want to ask questions more than other classes. Why do you
Yeah.
think that is?
I would say a lot of it had to do with the teacher, I think part of quality education is having good educators, and educators who are also passionate about what they were doing. And so I had teachers who described like things within class in a very interesting ways that made you think like, oh my god, like that. It also made you as passionate about it, and also it also inspired you to want to know more. And so I think those were like the classes that I really enjoyed. But also when it comes to like classes that made me feel that way, one of the classes I was referencing is a class I took last semester actually, in college, which was an African studies class, and we were learning about Africa since the 1800s. And it wasn't anything special. I hated SS and history. I'm not going to lie. I didn't even do history in high school. But so it was my first history class since Form 1. And it just inspired. We were learning, like we learned about the Algerian War. We learned so much, but just being able to if one through the way the professor taught it, but also just kind of the topic in and of itself, it made me want to like get more books and learn more on what happened in Algeria, for example, or like read Jomo Kenyatta's book Facing Mount Kenya and all those things. and maybe it's because I like literature analysis and that's kind of what we were doing as well. And so it was also capturing some of my passion. But I found that it's a combination of having a good educator
Mm,
who's really passionate about what they're doing, um, but also just being able to make room for like questions and further studies as an
mm,
educator and within the classroom. Yeah.
mhm. Yeah, and also in the definition of college education, you mentioned like curiosity, which I really, really appreciate because I feel like curiosity comes from like you having the initiative to do the thing, not
Mhm.
necessarily like waiting for someone to like, inspire, not necessarily inspire you, but to push you to do what you
Exactly.
want to do. I'm wondering how curiosity manifested in your high school education.
Oh, oh my God, that's like a really good question. I'll have to think about it a minute. I think it manifested majorly in kind of the extracurricular activities that I ended up taking part in. I think towards the tail end of my explanation, I mentioned I took part in a conference. And that conference was literally, I think, a manifestation of curiosity. It was just one of those things where I was talking to one of my teachers. He wasn't really even a teacher who taught me any classes, but we had a good working relationship. And he told me, oh yeah, there's this thing that talks there's a conference that a friend of mine is hosting, and it's about technology in education. Is that something you're interested in? And I had done computer studies in form one, dropped it
Hmm.
as well, but I was always so interested in like, and we had like a computer lab and all of that, and there was a lot of like regulation around how when you can use the computer lab and whatnot, blah blah blah. But it was always so interesting to me watching like American movies and they're using like their laptops and everything and all of that. And I was like, why does Kenya not do that? Like, why do we still write everything down? And why are we not allowed to have phones at school? And like, what impact does that have on how we understand education from how other people understand education? And so I was like, yeah, let's do this. Let's go to this conference. And that's kind of like the research we were doing. We were understanding like how does Finland structure the education system. I remember that specifically, and kind of understanding like how to sustainably introduce technology into education. And that it was just like a matter of curiosity because Kenya is still to a good extent not doing that. And so that's kind of how it manifested in my high school life. Yeah.
You've mentioned something on like the disparity of Kenyan education and say American education, where we have to take down notes.
Mm,
We don't have technology in schools for the most part, but
mm,
American students usually have like technology, from the onset. They use their laptops, they use their
yeah.
tablets, they go with cell phones to school. So I was also wondering the aspect of cell phones. Like, do you think it's a good thing for students to go to have cell phones in school?
I would say yes and no. I think
Hmm.
my answer to everything is really it depends, which
Yeah.
is not necessarily the best answer, but I think it can be a good thing depending on how we're introducing it. I think in the setting of I mean, with CBC might be different, and I'm not fully sure of how the CBC curriculum works. But I think with the 844 system, it was not a possibility to do that because you have national exams where you cannot cheat and all those
Yeah.
things, and so and you're living in a boarding school and all of that, and so having a phone is not conducive for that kind of environment because it breeds these issues of cheating and whatnot, and so I would say no in that situation, but I do think that technology is important and can be properly introduced in schools. It's a matter of how it's regulated and how it's
Mhm.
implemented. And I think with Kenya, with Kenyan institutions, implementation of a lot of things is a struggle. And so I would say with implementation of having like giving students cell phones, that would be a huge issue. And because like at what time can they use it and whatnot, like can they have it in class or do they only get it like after class and for how long, and making sure the phones don't get stolen in a boarding school because a lot of things get stolen and all of that. But I do think I remember, well, as part of the research for that, we were talking about how it's important to also use technology because technology makes our lives easier and it's another form of media that helps with education. You can watch a
Mhm.
video online, a YouTube video online if you didn't understand things. Because like
Yeah.
if I don't understand math, organic computer is my go-to YouTube person, and so there's always that second help outside of class, and that would be super helpful. Yeah, I had
And it
I
also incorporates like non-traditional learners, because the H44 system assumes that all of us are, uh, I don't know what's the word, linguistic learners,
yeah,
but there are other learners who like learn better auditorily or
exactly.
visually with diagrams and stuff, and a lot of like technological aids can be good in aiding the process of learning. Yeah.
Yeah, but again, comes the problem of affordability, and not everyone has phones back at home and all of that. And so there's a lot of considerations to take. With America, it's not it's not as big of an issue, I think. With it's a more, I'm not going to say it's a more materialistic kind of place, but it's a matter of, you'd find a majority of people do own phones and stuff. While in Kenya, we do have parents who will not give their kids phones, one, or two, just cannot afford to give their kids.
Yeah, I also remember in my high school, though we didn't have a canteen, which was torturous for the most part. But
Yeah.
they were having this whole like philosophy of like equality and like everyone's equal, and they want to like eliminate all forms of inequality. So if we had a
Mm,
canteen in school, like the rich kids would buy the, I don't know, snacks, and the other kids would not be able to afford it. But I'm also like thinking of how best can we implement technology if we are to like take that step, if like students are to use technology in school, what is the best way of implementing that? Because you mentioned like there's a problem of implementation.
mm,
And also a follow-up question on the same is, there's also the problem of self-esteem that has been brought about by social media. There's
mm,
also the problem of people all over the world having existential crises because they're just bombarded with innumerable information from TikTok and
mm.
Instagram.
Yeah,
So how can you also like, in as much as we want technology, technology is good, right?
yeah.
But we also don't want to fall into the hole of having kids being depressed because they have low self-esteem because they're comparing themselves to others.
Mm. That's a good question. And another thing that I would throw into the hat is the whole use of ChatGPT and in the education space. So just to answer your question, if you're thinking of it theoretically as implementing technology into Kenyan institutions, I think one of the key steps that we need to take in terms of doing that is, one, implementing it early. And so implementing it at a younger age, and so that they can grow into having it always there. And so in like beginning of primary school and whatnot, it's a good time. I wouldn't say earlier than that, because writing is still a necessary skill.
Mhm.
Let's not forget the art of writing, even in the
Yeah.
face of technology. And then when it comes to being able to um, handle and handle all these different challenges, I would say, like, one of the challenges, especially when it comes to being able to ensure that it's equal access to that, that's when we need governmental um, implementation of this. And so I do know, like, there's NGOs and there's companies in Kenya that do produce, like, those tablets. There was a time when this was a thing in Kenya. I remember
Yeah.
so distinctly, because we thought we were going to get tablets at my school. We never did. But there was a time, like, they had this learning tablet, and that's solar powered, so it's sustainable, and it's easy to, you don't need a lot of sockets all over the school and whatnot. And that the government was to buy from a third party and then distribute them to institutions. I think that's a good way to do it, for one. Because at that point, it's not a matter of me as a parent, I need to buy my kid a tablet that they bring to class to do their assignments.
Mhm.
Or even if it was a matter of that, then we should make room or regulations where, if the parents who really cannot afford it, then uh, they can get some sort of yeah um, assistance from the government or whatever. Um, but when it comes to self-esteem issues, I think that's a much difficult one to tackle, because it it differs from person to person. I wouldn't say it's like something that happens across the board. Everyone has different relationships with social media, I would say. I would
Mhm.
say keep social media out of the school. I would say, but that doesn't mean that we should ignore the issue. I think that's something that should be openly talked about in institutions. One
Mhm.
thing that I disliked about Alliance is, um, post COVID, there was like this blatant refusal to acknowledge that mental health is an active thing that
Mhm.
affects the academic lives of students. And so we're having students who are saying schools were burning in Kenya, and people's parents are ailing at home, or they've had relatives who passed away from COVID, and then they're coming back. They're having classes from 5 a.m. to like 11 p.m. and nonstop. The academic calendar is shorter. We have shorter breaks and whatnot, and we're still saying that mental health has no space within the high school. I think
Mm,
that's not a good thing. We should
mm,
still be making space for that. And I think if we were to make space for that in Kenyan high schools, then conversations like having good relationship with social media will come up naturally, because that's a thing that students face, even if it's not affecting them while they're in a boarding school, it's affecting them at home. And so making school also a safe space for them to talk about it would be really important. Yeah.
mm. Yeah, you brought out on a very important element of like mental health. The previous episode I interviewed, one of the students at Columbia, she talked about how like she went to Zimbabwe and like people talking about mental health was like not very,
Mm.
normal. Or like
Yeah.
she went there and people were like, oh my God, you're talking about mental health. How many days? Oh, repulsed. They're repulsed by that. And yeah, that's very true, even in the Kenyan context. Like,
Yeah.
we, I mean, I'm guessing the conversation has started, most especially in social media. There are a lot of like influencers or content creators talking about mental health, but that
Yeah.
hasn't really proliferated in the school level. And even if it has, I mean, we have guidance and counselors and stuff, but we're not really tackling the real issues that affect us. What do you think is a good way of going about this?
Yeah, I think there's multiple ways of going about it. One of the institutes, I'll give them a shout out, Shamiri Institute. I think they do have like a program that they do within colleges, and I think also high schools in Kenya. They're a nonprofit that deals with mental health. They have, I think, therapists as well. They have classes and whatnot, and they if an administration agrees, and I think that's also an important aspect, an administration has to be willing to think that this is an important thing for their
Mm,
institutions. I think they can go into an institution and make space for students to share how they feel and how their mental health is going, and which is a good thing, because sometimes with Kenyan schools you're so scared of your teachers. We're taught to fear and respect them, and so even if there's a guidance counselor who is part of the school, there's also this kind of fear that they're going to tell my teachers, they're going to tell the administration, and they're going to take some kind of action against me. But when we have nonprofits and third party companies that partner with education institutions to kind of give this kind of support, I think that's very helpful. I also think there's also space for grassroots support among students. I think with Alliance there used to be a thing where the captain body, they would go, especially for the lower students, so for form ones and form twos, every Friday night, I think was, or every other Friday night, there was like a captain assigned to each classroom, and it was basically like a venting session. You go to a class, you bond with them, so it was mostly the upperclassmen, so prefects from form 3 and form 4. You bond with them, they tell you what's going on with their time at Alliance, what are they complaining about, like what's not good, what's going poorly. And you'd find that at times, once you build the bond really strongly, a student would come to you personally and go, hey, I'm really struggling with this. I need some help, I need someone to talk to. And not to say that students should now become like the mothers for other, or parents for other students, but there's also that kind of space to assist someone else, or if someone comes to you, to refer them to someone else, or to even tell a trusted adult at that point.
yeah, and you've talked about the element of like just having this sisterhood present,
Yeah,
like your
exactly.
sister is your keeper, and just creating that bond among even the students. It starts off with like the bond we have with students and then it goes to the teachers. I remember in my high school it was very intense, and like we wanted to pass exams and stuff, and everyone like wanted was like hardworking and stuff.
Yeah.
And just like that brought about a lot of like mental health issues, like you hear someone is stressed in this other side, someone is stressed in this other side. And yeah, like as you've said, like mental health is very, very vital. And I'm wondering also like what the administration can do, you know? Like,
Mhm.
yes, sisterhood is important. Having like outside people from grassroots initiatives, that's like also very vital. But what about the administration? Like, how about the communication we have with our teachers, as you rightfully said, like we are
Yeah.
taught to be scared of our teachers. how can we change that so that students can be comfortable, approaching their teachers? Teachers can be more of like, yes, they are mentors and stuff, but they're also our friends.
Yeah. Oh, uh, that's the reason why I've had to like take a break with that one is I was thinking about the case of Alliance, one of the teachers who was
Yeah.
widely known as the teacher to go to have if you had issues, and who was friendly with the students, ended up having the case, Mr. Iru, with of having sexually abused a couple of students, and there's also that aspect of gender and power imbalance and all of that. But I will say, uh, while I think one, it's kind of like the culture the administration builds around it and builds around the kind of relationships that students can form with their teachers. I think, regardless, I am a big proponent of a teacher is not your friend. Um, Not to say that we cannot you shouldn't be able to speak to a teacher about personal things. I think you should, but there's also some amount of professionality and some
Yeah.
amount of understanding that comes with having a teacher-student relationship. There's an understanding of like there's power and all of that. But regardless, having a top-down understanding that this is something that's allowed within the school and that's promoted within the school is important. Because at Alliance, there was a time when the administration rightfully said in front of the whole school that, yeah, mental health is not an issue here. And, when you build that culture already, then you've already shut out the possibility of students being able to speak to their teachers when, as an administration, that's what you're preaching to the school. I think if you're also pushing your teachers to be able to speak to your students, because we had like those class meetings. I don't know if I think every school has that, like class
Yeah,
meetings
yeah, yeah.
with class teacher,
Every
and
Tuesday.
there's an ability to like make those more personal. I remember there's a time in Kenya. H4 has been a lot of things, but I remember that there used to be a curriculum for like class meetings. If I'm not wrong, there's a time my primary school teacher had like a book, and they used to have like different topics they had to like talk about during class meetings. And one of them would be like mental health, or it would be like sexual health, sexual education, and all of those things.
Mm.
I think that was the idea with it, like one, giving that kind of like education to students, but also making it okay to speak about it, so that even if it's not in that larger context, like a student would be comfortable coming to speak to teachers about it. But we've lost that in some ways. Yeah, it got lost in the
Mm-hmm.
hustle and bustle of it before, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean that goes back to what you talked about, the problem of implementation.
Yeah.
Like, someone also in the podcast, I think the title of the video is like, was the 844 system too idealistic? Like it has a good vision, but the problem comes in with implementation. So we even have like a curriculum for class meetings, but that can only go so far if it's not implemented. And as you've talked about, like, the whole issue that surrounded Alliance Girls High School with the teacher and stuff, that also happened in my high school. And I'm pretty sure it's happened in a lot of high schools.
It's
And this is something that is not being talked about enough. Or
yeah,
if someone brings it up, it's like shut down. And this ties to the whole history of like misogyny for women. Like they're just
exactly.
not taking women's issues seriously. And of course I'm saying they, but this is also like something that is internalized by other women. So how do we like let's walk through this whole thing step by step.
Mhm.
Like how can we empower girls, girls in high school, first of all, to be aware of their rights. Because many a time for a girl, I was talking about this with my friend because this is also a similar thing in primary schools. Yeah.
Yeah,
I was talking about this with my friend when you're saying how like in primary school, like you might be talking to your teacher and you assume that they have good intentions because you're a kid and you don't know like your like sense of the world, your ethics. You haven't read Aristotle, so you don't know how
yeah,
the world works.
yeah,
And you look up to your teachers for guidance, but your teachers may not be the best people because their moral standards are also very, very crooked. So what can we do for girls to like have this awareness of, sometimes it's not that straightforward and sometimes people have bad intentions.
yeah. Um, well, I think which this is also an idealistic answer to an extent, is that charity begins at home. I think it has to begin at home to an extent. It has to begin with their parents being educating them about this. Because this also happened in my primary school where a teacher allegedly slept with a student, and so they had to get arrested. You know, I was in class 6 at the time. And I remember, like, when that happened, my mom had a whole talk with me about, like, you know, how close you should be with a teacher, because she'd seen he was my math teacher. I think she'd also noticed that we were good
Trust
friends.
me, girl. I was the same. Our math teacher, but he was fired. But we talk about him to date.
Oh my God. Yeah, and exactly. And so it's like it's such a common experience
Yeah.
in institutions. And when he was my math teacher, and I thought this was a good teacher. He was a fun teacher, you know, because again, with Kenyan institutions, you have so many people trying to kind of exact their power on you and to tell you that, yeah, you're smaller than me. You have to listen to me.
Yeah.
I'm right and you're always wrong.
Hmm.
And so when you find a teacher who is not like that and who is down to earth and who is willing to speak to students, it's so easy for students to go to feel too relaxed with them. And that's
Yeah.
kind of like how I'd already started feeling with some of those teachers. And then things like this come to light, and then you're like, oh my God, like what happened. And so I think part of it, yeah, it starts at home. And sometimes, yeah, people don't have families where, or they don't have parents who can speak to them about these issues. But I
Yeah.
think um in in situations where we do have that, I think it's very important for mothers or even fathers, like, because this is not just a female issue, it is majority females who go through this, but also men get sodomized as well in institutions. um,
Hmm.
Having parents being able to speak to their kids about these issues is very important. And then when it comes to institutions, I think we need to stop. I don't know what we can do about this, and I'm not going to lie, I don't have a proper answer for this. Teachers need to stop this whole idea of they're in competition with the students. For example, like this thing of, oh, students cannot wear, girls should not be wearing perfumes in school, or they should not be doing this, because like, why are you trying to compete with me, why are you trying to attract a male teacher? That kind of thinking is what perpetuates this in institutions, because
Yeah.
why would a teacher be attracted to a teenager, a 12-year-old? Why should we be giving students the idea that a teacher may be interested in them? This is why we make space for this. We had teachers who would actively be making jokes about how someone is too ugly in class that they would not hit on them. Why is that something normal to say? You know,
Mhm.
why are we making space for such conversations? We need to. And I think it's a culture issue more than it is
Yeah.
like an education issue. It's a culture issue within Kenya, and we're also bringing it into spaces like our education spaces. And because we have students in boarding schools where they don't have access to their parents, and they're in confined spaces, they just
Yep.
become exacerbated in these spaces, and we see issues like this come to light. And when you have a national school like Alliance that has like PR, you know, they have to maintain a certain image, then you
Yeah.
have them trying to cover up all the stories, but it's an actual issue.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I guess to an extent, I don't really know what I need to do, because it's a whole cultural change that needs to happen so
Yeah.
that it also occurs within our education systems. It's not something that I would just say, and like teaching our kids would change it. I can tell my kid to be safe, but if the teacher who is telling them that they're attracting male teachers by dressing a certain way, by their
Yeah.
skirts being taught in school, if
Yeah.
we don't change that mindset, then whatever I teach my kid is not going to help them. At the end of the day, they're still going to have teachers who are predators around them, and that's not their fault. It's a fault of the culture that we've built around it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Like you've touched on a lot of things.
Oh
So
my
you
god.
started off with like it starts off, and I don't think that your answer is idealistic. I feel like
Yeah.
people will just say it's idealistic so that they don't address the issue,
Mm,
because this is something very simple. It's not like we need like funding for anything. So you've started off with like talking about the household level.
yeah.
What are our parents telling us about ourselves? Because many a time, even in the household level, we start off with guys. Guys are being taught not to be like girls. Girls are being taught that they should look forward to like this utopian man. They should
They,
like sort of like want to please man. And they're
yeah.
not really empowered to have agency. So
Yeah.
yeah, it starts from the household level, like what parents tell their kids. Yeah, I really agree with that. And then you went to the school level. And he talked about how like the jokes that some teachers say, which is like very offhand. So like even like as we're talking right now, um, if someone is watching this and their kid maybe in high school or anywhere, even in uni, like let's just put it down and say that like someone's making those types of jokes, like that's not a joke. I feel like
Yeah,
we've normalized people just making very sexual jokes,
we have.
and that's not normal, you
Yeah,
know?
we laughed at it. I'm not going to lie. When those jokes are made, we laugh because it's within our like we've normalized it so much that it's a red flag. It should be
Yeah,
called out. It shouldn't be something that we should be laughing about. But
yeah,
when we've normalized it so much, it becomes women are allowed to feel like I saw this meme recently where men are taught that, oh yeah, in a classroom you're told that, yeah, your wife is not here, your wife is like in class
yeah,
3 or whatever, or like when and just this idea that we perpetuate it within our classrooms and even outside our classrooms, we've normalized it so much that even women themselves have put like they've taken on these roles that they shouldn't be taking on. They've anchored themselves in misogynistic cultures, and we've just accepted it for what it is because that's just how it is. We're Kenyan country, it's just jokes about it. It's always a joke,
yeah.
It's more than that.
Yeah, and you've also talked about like the school level, like teachers saying, oh, like this is along the lines of, oh, you're going to seduce that man, that man is going to like you. Like teachers feel like, I don't know, like that also, like for girls in high school, I feel like we are not just made to be our fullest selves because we're taught to live under the shadow of like, oh, the man, like you'll seduce this man, which is like very insane when you think about it. Because first of all, you're just taught to suppress, first of all, our African selves. Like we don't have our hair in like very many styles. We're supposed to straighten our hairs and stuff. Even in the straightening of our hairs, we cannot style it in different ways because, oh, we are going to seduce our teachers, which is like
Mm.
very insane. And I was listening to this, like, they call it a vodcast these days, very many terminology. And it's called That's What She Said. I don't know if you've heard of it. And if someone like if anyone wants to like go along those lines of like want to learn of women empowerment, I feel like that's a good place to start because they unpack a lot of things and they make you aware of the things that you've normalized. There's a huge role that we have to play as women, in creating like awareness on this issue, in just like normalizing the conversations, as you've said, and just making it a normal thing, like talking about how you feel, how this like man interacting with you, like we have to normalize it. And
Yeah.
yeah, now the mantle is on us to just make sure that it's possible.
That's true. Now that I think about it, that's one of the things I love about Gen Z, and especially Gen Z in Kenya, with calling for political change, but also like standing with South Africa right now, and whatever is happening in South Africa, or standing with the women in South Africa. I think that's an example of the cultural change. Us being able to speak about it just shows like, yes, the future generations are going to come from us are going to be told that these are issues that they should be caring about, and this is how they should be navigating
Yeah.
them, and so we may not be seeing it in our lifetime where we're still experiencing this in our day to day, but the fact that we are as aware as we are right now, it means that once we have kids below us, we'll have people who we've taught that this is how we should be, and we've built that kind of environment where they have not grown up in the culture that we grew up in. They're growing up in a sort of like slowly changing culture where they understand that this is not how things should be. And that's a beauty of, I think, um, with movements like this. It's a matter of maybe not seeing it today, but knowing
Yeah.
that, showing that it does happen at some point, and it may be 20 years from now, who knows? But Kenya has come a long way
Mhm.
since we got independence, and so maybe that way will be 2040, but we'll probably say it, but it starts from like small things like this. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the beauty of social media activism, I feel, because I remember when you're having the whole finance bill protest, I was asking one of the people in the podcast, Natasha, who I mentioned, like she's also in Germany,
Mm-hmm.
and she was saying, like, I asked her, like, what's the importance of activism? Like, we go there, we protest, and some people are killed, some people are shooted and stuff, tear gassed, and then we go back home, and sometimes even the change is not even effected. But I feel like it's important because it creates awareness. We now know that this is not normal,
Yeah.
and we denormalize the thing that we have so long deemed to be normal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I wanted to also ask you, like, if there's a girl watching this right now, what can you tell them?
I would tell them to I would tell them to live their best life and not to let society make them feel smaller than they are. I think as part of our culture is making girls feel small, making girls feel scared of life, and they should be. We should. A part of being a woman is when because I'm an avid traveler. Part of the thing that I look up when I travel is this a safe place for women? And then I also have to go to the race level. Is this a safe place for Black people and and
Mm,
whatnot? But that's something that we should be doing. But for a long time, I felt like I couldn't travel by myself. I couldn't do this, or I couldn't even go to a place by myself because I was so scared that there would be an incident that would happen. Like someone would approach me and I'd be by myself and
yeah.
I wouldn't know what to say. I wouldn't know how to defend myself.
Mm,
And I think that's kind of how society continues keeping us within this misogynistic kind of culture where women just continuously feel small in whatever spaces that they're in. Sometimes you're going to be the only girl in a space. Sometimes you're going to be the only girl in like an engineering classroom. And it's so easy to feel like your voice is not heard. You're going to be in a you're going to be doing group work with a bunch of men and you're the only girl there and they won't be listening to your ideas. Stand up to them. Be willing to make your space your own. Don't be afraid to take up space. And for so long, I had that feeling that yeah, I cannot take up space. And it's part of our culture, you know. You need to be very humble about the things that you're doing. You need to you need to not let people know and whatnot. But that's kind of how we leave women where that's how we keep women where we found them.
mhm.
So yeah, any girl who's watching this today, take up all the space that you need to take up if you want to go for a dream, no matter how unachievable it looks like. At least you tried, you know. Try, move forward. If you want to go to some place and you're so scared of doing it alone, you can go
Mm,
alone, or you can also find female friends who are going to help you get there. I think um you should not ever feel like you should not be occupying a space because of how you look or just because of your gender and whatnot. At the end of the day, the world is you're going to be different from someone else. I think that's part of
yes.
being human. We're all different.
Yeah.
If you keep on focusing on the differences, life's going to be so sad. Just
Yeah.
use your difference to make an impact.
Hmm.
Use your voice because your voice as a woman, as a Kenyan woman in from whatever background, is very valuable. And I
Yeah.
think, especially with like studying abroad and such things, institutions like ours understand that, and that's kind of what they're looking for. So use that to your advantage, and don't let it be the thing that holds you back. Let it be the thing that that makes you kind of stand apart from the crowd. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Haimie. Like that was very powerful. And yeah, like take up space as much as you can. Thank you so much for that. And I'm wondering because you've talked about like there was a time where like you felt like you didn't take up space. Like what did you do to start taking up space?
Yeah, that's a good question. I wouldn't say like there's like specific outlined things that I did. Um, it was really much of a mind shift change and listening to and finding empowering women and mentors who would push me to do that. But I would say when I was speaking of feeling that way, I was thinking of, for one, joining Penn. And the first time I came to Penn, and this is a continuous cycle, I think, in life. You
Yeah.
When I
Mm,
got into high school, everyone is incredible, everyone is smart, and then you're over here and you're always trying to like measure up against them and see where you stand. And then same thing happened coming to Penn, but now it's kind of different. Now everyone is different from you. There's people who've done 5, 10 internships, the people who started companies, the people who know they want to go to private equity, they want to be a doctor and whatnot, and you're still unsure. And so I felt kind of small. I felt like, damn, like me, a girl from Africa who doesn't even know what they want to do as a career, two, who has no job experience, who has never founded a company and whatnot. Like, what kind of space do I have in this institution? And I think one of the first things I did was just try,
mm,
just try and join something. I think it's part of building the confidence, being able to try for something and it either works out or even if it doesn't, that's kind of the steps that get to the point where you're able to fully occupy space. So first semester, I didn't even apply to any club because I was so scared of being rejected, because I felt like I did not have anything to add to those institutions, to those clubs that I wanted to join. But being able to realize that if I'm passionate about it, I think that's one of the things I would advise someone. If you go against what you're passionate about because it's easier to get into it, I think that's one of the first ways to start occupying space,
Mm-hmm.
going into spaces that you're really passionate about. And so I was like, I really want to do this. Let me try out for that. I really want to learn about consulting. I really want to be part of like this community on campus. And so I'm going to put myself out there and just try. And then you'll find other women who are already there and who are occupying space there. And they'll model the way for you at times, even unknowingly. Like I saw people who were already doing incredible things of, and I was like, if they can do it, I can do it. Like, why am I so scared of doing it? Like they've lived through it. And so I think it's also another thing, being able to be vulnerable about it. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's not you're not the only one who feels that way. And
Yeah.
especially in my situation, like joining a school as an international, I was not the first international to join Penn. I
Yeah.
was not the first Kenyan to join Penn. I was not the first woman, girl to join Penn from Kenya. And so being able to go to those who've come before you and be like, this is how I feel. How did you tackle it? It's always so great because there's always someone who's willing to hold your hand. Maybe it may not be the first person you ask, but someone will hold your hand. And that's also really important. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, you've talked about like just trying, and I feel like that's an important thing, you know, take up space, try, and always expose yourself.
Yeah.
Never sit in your dorm. I don't know. Someone talked about like the worst place to be in college is like in your dorm room. You know, I'm in my dorm right now, but I'm making a podcast for the record. Yeah, like you should go out there and like take the world by storm because like the world
Yeah.
is yours, and yeah, like you can never know your potential if you don't try. And you've
Exactly.
also mentioned like the fear of rejection, and I feel like that stops many of us from like doing what we want because like we're scared, oh, what if we fail, you know? But you know, like there's this famous thing that says like you'll never know until you try. Like for me, I believe it's better to be rejected, honestly, because at least you tried, you know. And another beautiful thing in also rejection is just like if you gave it your all, like that's all that matters, you know? Like
Yeah.
as long as you gave it your all, even if you get like not the best grade or you don't get accepted into that internship, at least you tried. You
Yeah.
know, and because you like learn a lot of things from that process, you'll be able like to do other things like say editing your resume because of that opportunity, and maybe that should prepare you for another opportunity. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
and I
you
feel
get
like people,
feedback. I'm sorry for
yeah,
cutting.
feedback, yeah,
Yeah.
and just like being able to like fail because like there's this person, I think it's Stephen Bartlett, who talks about like the beauty of other people is like they've failed 5 times before even someone else has tried. Because
Exactly.
of the sixth time, that's where like you succeed because you've already like exposed yourself to like a lot of failure, and then
Hmm.
the sixth time you win, and like no one will remember like the 5 failures that you've gone through.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about like high school and like your experience in high school, and that made us like go into this other tangent. So I want us to like go back to after high school.
Yeah.
What did you do during your gap year?
Yes, so I had the fortunate opportunity of joining CANSAP, and CANSAP is, for those who don't know and who are watching, it's Kenya's Scholars Access Program, and it's a program that helps students from Kenya, especially from low income and less privileged backgrounds, to get access to universities in North America, so Canada and the US, and so post high school, this given that I graduated in 2022 April, the weird cycle, um, I was able to join CanSub towards the end of the year, and then they have a residential program, and so I did that for 3 months. So during the residential program, we were studying for SATs, which I ended up taking, I think, late August around that time. We were also learning about like how to write essays in America, like just like understanding what, preparing ourselves to transition to an American kind of education system. And I think that was super helpful. And I would advise anyone post high school, like apply to all those access programs. You may not be the archetype that they're looking for, but again, try. You never know what's going to land and what's going to be helpful for you. And so, yeah, I did that. And given that it was a residential program, I didn't get to join university at the time. I ended up deferring my admission. I didn't want to become a doctor anyway, so thank God. But I was to join UON and do medicine and surgery. But I do feel bad that I didn't get to experience the Kenyan university scene. I think it's something. It's just something. Yeah. And then the next year, so I got into Penn early decision. So that's December of 2022. And then 2023, beginning of the year, like around February, Cancer again partners with amazing companies across Kenya. And one of the companies they partner with is Zaraki. And so I got to work with them as an intern. And Zaraki is an edtech company founded by Isaac Nyangolo. Again, someone who's a great mentor, I would say. Look him up. He went to Harvard. Great story. Came back to Kenya to create this company that basically creates online materials for students, and they're fairly cheap, or at least as I remember, to just make education more accessible. And they also sell products to universities. And I was a branding intern, first time hearing what branding was, especially as a math stroke science oriented kid. It was very out of my comfort space, but I was writing essays on I interviewed students and wrote essays on like students who have extraordinary stories in Kenya, and they were shared on like their social media platforms. And then I was also working on a Zaraki school directory, which meant that I was going to schools across the country pitching the idea to administrators. It was a very interesting job, around 3 months, and then I stayed home for a while, then went to the US. Yeah.
Could you walk us through like your journey, like studying for the SATs? How was that?
Um, that was it was difficult, I would say. Don't be scared that if it ends up being difficult, especially I started studying, I don't know, like 3 or so months after I finished high school, and already some things have started disappearing from my head. The whole calculus situation was, oh my God, like I have to remember calculus again. It took a lot of finding online materials. There's a lot of free online books, like you can definitely use like Anna's Archive, a lot of online platforms where you can get books for free and they're accessible. I think that was one of the first things that I did. Looked up books where I could read for the ACTs. With Cancer again, I was very lucky that we also had ACT classes, and so we also had that to help us prepare for the ACTs. But also, it's a lot of pushing yourself to understand like what you're struggling with. At some point, it was like specific because ACTs is very structured, like there's a kind of question that will end up showing up every time, and so being able to tell, like, figure out the patterns across the exam and then figure out like what points you're struggling. That's kind of what I did to prepare for the ACTs. I don't necessarily think I had the best score, but I also had a good enough score that I used it to apply to Penn, which was a good thing.
And then now let's go to your journey in Penn.
Yeah,
Why, first of all, why did you choose Penn over every other Ivy League school or Ivy Plus school?
that's good. That's a good question. Initially, I wasn't thinking I was going to go to Penn. Um, Penn came to my attention because of the advancement program, which is the program I'm in. I the things I wanted out of going to the US was I wanted to study abroad at some point. I knew I wanted to study abroad, even though studying in the US is studying abroad. I wanted to go elsewhere as well. I wanted a school that was in the city. I didn't want something that was away from the city because I wanted to also experience what living in an American city was like. And then three, I wanted to continue learning German because I was like, I've given it 4 years, like might as well like do a minor in it and whatever. And so when I learned of the program, it was like ticking off all the boxes. Oh, okay. And I also wanted a big community and big Kenyan African community. And so the program ticked off all those boxes because um, I'm studying abroad right now. I also get to continue taking classes in advanced German, but also it also comes in with an inbuilt community because it's a small group of people within the school who are doing this program, and so it's already easier to make connections that way while you're abroad. And then after learning of the program, getting into researching Penn, I realized Penn has a lot of Kenyan students, and that was like, oh, thank God. It's not a matter of like I had to stay in my Kenyan bubble, but it also makes the transition easier knowing that people who are the same or almost the same as you who are already there and who you can also speak to in Swahili when you get tired of all the English and whatnot.
What do you wish, like, you knew if you'd go back to the application process right now? What would you have done different?
I don't think there's anything necessarily that I would say I would have done differently. Something that I would have done more was understanding the fact that they're just trying to get to know you at the end of the day. These are people who've never seen you. They don't understand what some niche thing that you did at your school is. And so being able to communicate that better is very important, and being able to show them. So just don't tell them. I think it's something that I always tell people who are applying, who are applying to anything, also who are just like writing any piece of writing. Being descriptive and being able to show things is bigger than being able to tell them. I can come and tell you, hey, I'm a great student. I got all A's. I'm I'm caring. I don't know. I'm supportive. Whatever. I care about the environment. That's that. At the end of the day, I only have what you said. I don't actually have any kind of description to back up to back up what you just told me. And so being able to show them by saying, yeah, I started this and this, or I was part of this and this community that did that and that, or I was a class subject prefect in my subject because when I was good in that subject, I was willing to help other students, whatever. Being able to show them is very important in your application. And at times when I was writing my application, it's so implicit to you that you think, yeah, they immediately, like when I say I'm a good student, they already you're just assuming that they know, but they don't know what makes you a good student and not someone else, because all of them, everyone applying is a good student. So being able to show what makes you a good student is very important, because that's what they're looking for. They're trying to find the variety in the kind of students that they're letting in into these institutions. And so that's why it's very important to dig deep. Like it's an introspective kind of situation. You have to think deep, dig deep, remember those situations that really make you stand out, those interactions that you had, those things that you don't really remember. Those are the things that are important when you're thinking about writing your application.
And now you got into Penn. Congratulations on that. And how has Penn been like?
Penn has been good. Like I mentioned, there's a big Kenyan community and African community, and I've leaned on them a lot, I think. And it gave me a lot of close friends. Even outside of that, it's been really great. I have a lot of support from my program, which made the process of being an international so much easier. But also came with like a lot of different things. The food at Penn is not good. Not just in general, food in general was a culture shock coming to the US, but I will say that food at Penn is not that good. I see like the TikToks of like Yale food, or like food at like other institutions like Cornell, and I'm like, damn, I wish.
It's
um,
crazy because there's one person who's from Yale and she doesn't like the food from Yale.
okay, so I think it's like you always gotta complain about what you have. It's
But Cornell people like their food. That's one thing for sure.
okay,
Yeah,
okay. The corner looks good. I've had good
yeah.
things as well. And then also the experience of being in a predominantly white institution was different. In Kenya, we're not necessarily a homogeneous society, but when you go to a boarding school and you're all women, yes, you've come from different backgrounds, but you all speak English and Swahili and whatnot, and you're all living the same 24 hours in the same way. It becomes a pretty homogeneous society, and then you come to this place and everyone is different and everyone has different interests and whatnot, and that was a big adjustment. But I've grown to like it as an aspect of being in such a school. Like
Mm.
I have the most international friend group, and there's always something to learn from them, and that's always so much fun. And then yeah, and then also just like assimilating into the society. I would
Mhm.
say that was one of the harder things I had to do, because in my opinion is, I think when people come here, especially um, come here being the US, even though I'm not there at the moment. um, but when they go to the US, especially, like there's like two things that can really happen, which is because you're so different and people are like telling you, oh, you speak so different, or like I can't understand your accent, like repeat
Mhm.
yourself or whatever, or like yeah, asking about my hair, like what my hair means, or like where I'm from. And because I don't know Nakuru, it's so easy to just say I'm from Nairobi, but I'm not from Nairobi. I sometimes people don't even know, I don't even know how Nairobi is, like I'll get lost in Nairobi maybe. But so one of that happens, and people, they either like erase aspects of their selves and their old selves to kind of like fit in. So they immediately start changing their accent and immediately start saying, "Oh yeah, I'm not from Nakuru, I'm from Nairobi and whatnot." Or the other side is you feel so you feel so foreign that you adopt it and you get stuck in
Mm.
this self that's not assimilating at all, in this self that's like constantly feeling nostalgia for home, or um that's constantly trying to prove that you're different from them in some way. And so I think being able to balance the two of them and being able to kind of like assimilate into it and be like, okay, yeah, how I'm speaking is slightly changing, and that's fine. Or I might need to change the way I pronounce like tater tots, like not say tater tots. Or like there's a time I ordered water and they're like, I was like, yeah, I need water. They're like, what? I was like, bro, no way. Because you've grown up being told you're speaking the King's English, you know, your English, you're so fluent, and then you come here and someone is like, you understand water? Uh, I know, it's crazy. So, but being able to just also take it kindly and not feel like it's a you problem. And I think that was one of the things I had to learn. Like that one was one of the biggest, the one of the things I had to adopt and adapt to getting on new not what do I want to think, taking on new identities. You know, in Kenya you're just a woman, and maybe you're Kisi, you identify with your tribe, but here you have to identify by your gender as well. You have to identify by your perceived as a
Race.
black person, by your race, yeah, as well, and all these other things. And these are not identities that you had to hold before, but being able to hold them also in a respectful way, because you don't have a Black American identity. You don't know. You may not even know what happened to them, and you have to carry it with you as well, and you have to carry it with some delicacy. So you have to be delicate about it, you know,
Yeah.
because someone will ask for your opinion on something, and it's something polarizing, but you know, like you haven't lived through the experiences, and you have to be more nuanced about the way you give your opinion on it, you know.
Hmm.
And so those things as well. But at the end of the day, again, I think 3 years in, I'm still learning how to fully adapt. But I feel like I'm in a better place right now. Yeah.
Yeah, you've said so many things and I feel so seen. First of all, you've talked about like yesterday, let me just like start off with like a short anecdote. Yesterday I was telling my friend I'm going to try an American accent. And then I met this other friend and she was like, okay, good luck on your American accent. And then the other person knew that I was going to try that. It was like
Yeah.
very funny because like, yeah, like it's very hard assimilating to this culture. Like you've put it on, like you described it so well, you know, like there's that clash between assimilating to this new culture and also holding to your culture, you know, like your identity as a Kenyan, as a person from, you've said Nakuru, you know, I'm a person from Eldoret for the most part. I also don't know how to navigate Nairobi so well. Like
Yeah.
those Nganyas, it's always a, it's always every
Yeah,
single time I have to take a
exactly.
breath before I take Anganya in Nairobi,
Yeah.
you know. And yeah, like that's very, very important. And like as you've just said, like the balance is very important. And I think you've um, said it so well. Like it's not all about like assimilating to this culture or clinging to your old culture, but
Mm.
finding a balance between the two.
Yeah.
Because yes, I've met people who like want to cling on their old culture too much that they don't even want to now like learn about this new culture, and other
Exactly.
people who've like changed themselves completely, and yeah, they're not like willing to identify with their old culture. And
Yeah.
yeah, pronouncing tater tots or water. Like we joke about that with my friends all the time. Like for me, like you know, it's always mirror. And then you know, Americans say mirror. Like you're like, what are you saying? Say that again. They're like, I didn't say mirror.
Then when you go back home and then you now start saying it the way an American would, and then now they don't
Yeah.
understand it,
Now,
and then you just feel like you're in this in between of like just there's someone who no one now understands, and it's
no, yeah, that's so true. Because when I went back to Kenya, I went back to my primary school, and like I was just no way I'm Angelica, I'm from New York. I didn't even know that I said New York in a different way. And then my teacher of English was like, I used to teach her English, and now I don't even understand her.
exactly
Because
exactly.
like I didn't even notice that I had changed till like I went back to my old primary school, and everyone's like, okay, okay, calm, tone down the English. And
Yeah,
like before I went to before I came to the States, like I was still very eloquent, you know. Then you
yeah,
come here and you realize, oh wait, you have to like adapt to this new culture and be eloquent in a different way, you know.
exactly.
Yeah, like I felt so seen when you described that, because I guess there are different elements of eloquence, you know, like being
Mm,
eloquent in Kenya and the eloquence in the States are different, and you have to like adopt to the, you know, cultures and what they define as eloquent and adapt to that, you know.
yeah.
Yeah.
form of code switching, really. You have to be able to do that when you get here as well, and also not feel small because they don't understand you, and feel like, oh my god, now I can't speak up, I can't answer a question in
Yeah.
class in case they're like, what did you say, or like something like that. Yeah, it's like a whole other thing you have to navigate. And I wasn't prepared for that. I think that's one thing that I was not fully prepared for when I came here. It was like, oh my God. I was telling someone that I'm learning German. And one of my close friends, he's like, today to joke about this, I told him 10 times. He did not understand what I was saying. And it took someone else joining the conversation and then telling him what I just said. And it was just the word German. And it was like, oh, you mean this? And I was like, we've been here for like 10 minutes, guys. There's no way. I was
Mm-hmm.
even changing my intonation and everything, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's and it's so easy to take it personal.
Yeah.
And now I don't take it personal. I will repeat as many times as needed. Sometimes, yeah, I get tired of repeating myself, but it's understandable. I don't understand fully a southern accent. Like I also have things I don't fully understand, so you just gotta make space for it. Yeah.
Yeah, and also talked about like how, we have to identify with like being black in America, and we're not necessarily like, like if we've grown up like knowing that we're all black, we're all fam.
Yeah.
And when you come here, you realize, oh wait, there's this whole like other element of it, like being a black American and just being seen as a black person in America is very different, and you also have to carry the weight of being black and all the implications that come with it. But back to the whole thing on like code switching and stuff, because there's also like other people who've talked about like like they're not going to change like the way they speak.
Yeah.
How like what are your thoughts on that? Because personally for me, this is something that I've always thought about for the longest amount of time. Like,
Mm.
should I like I don't know, like I can't even like do an American accent. Like
So,
it will be hard. It will be very hard. Like just speaking like an American for one day, that would be exhausting.
mm,
But there are people who like switch their accents to like speak more like an American, and it works for them.
yeah.
So what do you think about that? If someone's like thinking of like coming to the States and they encounter this, how should they go about this, or like what advice would you give them? Because I don't think there's a one size fits all type of answer.
Yeah. I think stick true to yourself. I'm also of the opinion that you should not try and change yourself in order to fit into the US. I think it's going to happen naturally. I think that's my opinion on it. I think I'm not good with doing accents. I cannot fake a German accent. I can't like I in all the spaces that I've been, I can't change my accent to be that, but your environment will affect you. That's like, it's a phenomenon that will happen. And so eventually it's going to happen. I think letting nature take its course is more
Mm-hmm.
important, and letting it
Mm-hmm.
happen naturally is fine. I think if it comes from a fear of I won't be accepted and I will be consistently perceived as different, and I'm of the opinion that if me being different from you stops you from wanting to give me a job, from wanting to be my friend and whatnot, then you are not the person to be my friend. I'm not going
Mm-hmm.
to change to fit and become your friend. I think I want people who are going to accept me as I am, because 20 years from now, I'm not going to be like this. I'm not going to sound like this. My hair is going to change, or something is going to change. And at that point, will I have to then change myself again to become friends with you? No. I think if like and I get the fear. I think it's a very understandable fear. And I think that's why a lot of internationals end up being friends with other internationals, because they're the people who fully get it,
Yeah.
who are also struggling with the same things, and it's easier to navigate such relationships. But I would tell them, just stick true to yourself, and you'll find your people. You'll find people who are willing to think twice about like what you've just said and go, oh, did you mean this? Or tell you like, I'm not to be rude, like I didn't fully
Yeah.
understand you. And people who are willing to make space for that. And those are people you need in honestly, while you're abroad. It's not the person who prefers you with the accent you've taken on. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true, and you'll find your people. That's one thing, like one thing for sure, you'll find your people. Because right now, as you've said, like you have the most international group of friends. That's the same for me. Like we have this like one friend group. My friend who's like Nigerian American, this other one is like French American, and then this other one is like Japanese European American.
Yeah.
Now we just like talk about like the different cultures. And like during fall break, we went to Connecticut, and that's like Connecticut, right? We used to say it as Connecticut in Kenya. And
Yes.
then I come over here and like, oh, it's Connecticut, right? And then my friend from France is also like, yeah, I also say it as Connecticut. like
That
she
was
and
so, oh my God.
yeah, I was like, yeah, thank you so much. I've been saying Connecticut for the longest amount of time. and I came here and it's, oh, it's Connecticut, you know?
Yeah.
And then we just like share about those different things. Again, like mirror, how mirror is being pronounced or water. And it's
Mhm.
just beautiful, like learning from other people and like, sometimes bantering about the different accents, but it
Yeah,
comes from a good place, you know?
it
Yeah,
does.
like, yeah, there's just beauty in authenticity. Just be your authentic self and people will like take you as you are. And
Yeah.
if they don't, well and good. Because like at the end of the day, you're not meant to be palatable to everyone.
Yeah, and it's good advice for even unsocial situations. I found like even for companies, I'm not going to try like for the jobs that you're looking for. I'm always like if how I am doesn't fit into the work culture as it is today, then there's no need to change myself for the work culture. Like I found like the jobs I really loved interviewing for and the companies I really liked talking to were companies where I was just my most authentic self. The way I talked was as I am talking right now, I was just as enthusiastic or energetic or just willing to go on a tangent as I did. And the interviewer was like willing to do that and make space for that. And so I would
Mm-hmm.
say it's like it's good life advice. I think you never want to be in a space where you have to change yourself to fully for the space to accommodate you, spaces can there are spaces that as they are fit you as you are right now.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean there's benefits to changing yourself in certain situations. Code switching is important in certain situations. I fully understand that. By the end of the day, don't get lost in the sauce and just don't lose of the true understanding of who you are trying to just become someone else. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean the fact that you mentioned that I feel like change is also a natural process, as you
Yeah.
mentioned. Like inevitably you will change because you're adapting to this new culture. And I
Yeah.
remember like when we went to Gambia for a summer program in August, like it was like a different array of people, like this one person who is Black American but he grew up in South Africa. This other person who's Jamaican and she's grown up in like Long Island in the States, and
Mhm.
then African Americans, and then me as an African, and then this British person, this person who's like Asian American, like it was just a vast array of people. It was
Yeah.
very interesting because now we're in Gambia, and then you could see like this American. She was my roommate in Gambia, and she also like changed her accent, not because like she wants to fit in, but it's
Yeah.
just like that element of like being in a new environment, like as you've said, like change is a natural process, and it's like at the end of the day, you like see yourself, like say I don't know 5 years back. Because this one time I was looking back at my one of my old videos, and
Hmm.
it's like I was posting it in like one of my like my friend's accounts, like a private account, and the way I spoke was very different. I was like, oh my days, like I was
Yeah.
speaking in a very different way, and I didn't even notice that. And I think that's also something that Lupita Nyong'o said, like her mom sent her a video note of her like before going to the States, and it was different, not because like she deliberately wanted to change, but it's just a natural process.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you so much for bringing that out. Like change is a natural process, and just embrace the change,
Yeah.
but never like forego your authentic self to please other people. You
Yeah.
know, and as you said previously, always take up space.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So right now you're doing a study abroad. So could you walk us through your study abroad? How is it? You said you have a month left before coming
Hmm.
back to the States.
Hmm.
So yeah, what are you looking forward to?
My study abroad is great. I'm here as part of BCGS, which is Berlin Consortium for Germanic Studies. So there's like a consortium of American universities, mostly the Ivy League, and a couple other schools, and they have a program with FU, which is Free University of Berlin, and so a group of us are here. I think it's about 9 of us were here. And it's a small enough group that all of it, each other. We took a couple of classes together and whatnot. And so they're just the people that I'm traveling with, the people that I'm living with and whatnot. But it's been a great experience going to a new place and learning the rhythm of life of that place. I think that's why I love really traveling. I think you forget it's so easy to get stuck in your own bubbles and realize that people live lives in very different ways, and being able to come to a new place and kind of like see what the rhythm of life there is very very interesting, and it's a bit of an adjustment, of course. But I'm taking currently 3 classes. I'm taking a class on literature analysis of like books written by immigrants to Germany, and that's a very interesting thing. And I'm doing a research paper on Mozambique guest workers who came to East Germany in the 1980s. And it's something that I really like, and it's a very interesting topic to me because they had a very interesting experience. And so being able to also talk about things that I'm passionate about and in this space, and about a whole country that's not my own, and a history that's not my own, is very interesting. And yeah, and also I'm taking a class on German architecture, which is very interesting, but it's about affordable housing and the history of like housing in Berlin and how it's changed over time, especially when it comes to solving housing crisis. And I think that's also a very good and interesting topic because it's a social justice issue across the world. I think Kenya may not be necessarily experiencing like a huge housing crisis, but a lot of big cities are, New York, Philadelphia back at my school, Berlin and whatnot. And so also being able to see it in another context is good. Yeah. And so outside of academics, it's been good to also be in Europe, and it's so easy to travel as well. And I've been taking advantage of that. I am looking forward to seeing my friends again. I have missed my friends. Um, I'm not looking forward to the spring semester. It is a sad semester. It's one of those semesters where you said like the dorm is the worst place to be, but it's the only place I want to be because it's dark and it's cold and and just like Philadelphia just like looks sad and gloomy, just like the asphalt and the muddy iced out roads and whatever. It's not fun in the spring, but I am looking forward to just being around friends again. I have classes that I'm looking forward to. Taking a class on African American writers and literature, and I think it's something that I don't really know as much. I know the big ones, but being able to get a look into it is also going to be fun. So I think I'm looking forward to that as well. And I'm looking forward to just change. I think I'm one of those people who I like changing things up every few months to it keeps me I don't know, I guess it keeps me more grounded and interested. And so changing back into like the rhythm of life in Philadelphia is going to be fun at the beginning, then annoying eventually, because it's gonna just be more classes than I'm taking here and whatnot. But yeah.
What advice would you give to someone who wants to go to Penn?
In general, I would say just do it. Apply to Penn. I think Penn is a great school and it has a lot of opportunities. Don't get lost in all the opportunities. You don't want to get burnt out, but also be willing to do the research and to find the opportunities that really work for you. I've traveled a lot, mostly because I've been at Penn, because I'm a Penn student, and there were classes that allowed me to travel, programs that allow me to travel, and especially as someone on financial aid, it's also way subsidized for you, and so you're able to, at least for me in my case, meet my passions while also doing it in a way that's affordable for me and whatnot. And so that's one thing I would say, like, be if you're really interested in going to Japan, I think you're going to love it. You're gonna hate it as well. I mean, I think it's part of education. You're going to find something you're going to not like, but at the end of the day, you'll find people to surround yourself with, and you'll find opportunities that will widen your idea of the world, and so take them, and also get out of the pen bubble. I think it's very important to see where you live and see the impact you're having on the community you're in this case West Philadelphia. Go on those walks, see the city, and see kind of like life outside school, because college is it's a very kind of bubble like lifestyle. Yeah.
The last question I usually ask is, what would you do given the chance to improve or revamp in the education system?
What I would want to do is a lot of what they wanted to do with CBC. I think it's just a poor implementation that just keeps on annoying me. But I would want to make people understand that education should be fun. It should not be competitive. It should not be about being the best all the time. It should be about wanting to know more. And and so I think the idea that, again, with CBC, the change of, you don't have to have this highly competitive national exams and whatnot. I think that's something that I would have done myself. I think it takes away the pressure of one big thing determining the rest of your life. And then in the context of Kenya, another thing that I would change is the whole idea of like the transition from high school to college. And you have to, if you take on a degree, you're taking classes that are all related to your degree. And then if you want to change it, you have to start over again. I think that's one of the reasons I left Kenya. I didn't know what I wanted to be interested in. I didn't know what I was interested in fully as a career, but also I have so many things that I want to learn. I want to learn about history. I want to take a music class. I want to learn
Mhm.
about photography. I want to, I want to hear anything and everything. And so being able to do that, I think, is also very important in Kenya. And I think something that we should be considering as a country and not forcing people to take on to start over again just because they chose something else in life. Like we're 18-year-olds. I don't know what I want to do till I'm 60. To be honest, at 18, I might not know. And so if I want to change, it should not be as much of a hassle and as much, time, money, costs, all those things should not be things that should be barring me from changing my life goals at some point in life because
Mhm.
again change is natural and you can't just like die on a hill that you aren't really invested in the first place. So yeah, that's something I would change. I would say I would make education not just something competitive, and then two, make it easier for people to change their life goals in college and to take on more classes that are of interest to them. Yeah.
All right, Haimie, thank you so much for being in the podcast. Thank you so much. This conversation has been very enlightening and insightful.
Thank you for
And I'm super excited for people to listen to it.
Yeah, so am I. This was a wonderful conversation, and I think this is a great platform that's very impactful. And so it's an honor being able to play a small role in making the impact that you're making. So again, thank you for having me, and also thank you for having this as something that people can access. I think it's very cool, and you're doing great work. Yeah.
Thank you so much.